To be honest, most Saints fans probably expected that. Just play the fucking clip already.
Ticks down. They lost a favourite son yesterday. This one's going to mean a lot. It's for the fans.
Oh my God! Can this game just end? Just end me already. End the game. End this suffering. Fucking no, there's no one there!
Going there and getting the wins. I realise that this can all be very much clipped if we lose, but surely, Sainers, surely we get the job done on Sunday night.
Almost sat there in silence watching that game.
I was laughing at the end. I don't know what happened.
Completely. It was a complete shit show by the end of it. Let me... Give me 1 second. Number one. This is what I had before Spud's game. And after the Fremantle game, I got gifted one more thing. It's not even out of the packaging yet, but I want to fucking burn it. And this also is including that, which is an entire blanket made out of scarves from probably 20 years ago, is the earliest that I've got. So not only do I do a Saints podcast on Monday nights, which comes out on Tuesdays, I also do a footy podcast, which if you want to go check it out, both of those are going to be in the description below, and that's called Zero Access Footy, which releases Wednesdays. I said in the Saints podcast that West Coast are going to win in the Saints podcast. And then I doubled down in the Zero Access Footy podcast. But I also tripled down and put $10 on the line in that game. And then I put money on West Coast to win. Gamble responsibly, as always. I was right. Is that what I can say? If you couldn't tell that this video was in shambles already, I don't know what more I can say. Basically, this is going to be me just going for a rant for God knows how long. It could be 20 minutes, could be half an hour. I've done an hour video. I won't torture you for that long, to be honest. I'll give you a bit of relief. But I'm not happy. I can certainly say that. This video is my first one of 2025. And I ended off last year with a couple trade period ones, and I didn't end it really where I wanted to. I wanted to do a lot of content. I wanted to be able to build up similar to what I did in 2024 with this going through every day. I just didn't have the energy to do it, to be honest. But I do apologize that this is the first video you get of me on the Premiership Quarter channel in 2025. I do apologize, sincerely. But for what I want to talk about in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my expectations for St Kilda this season. I'm talk about how we've performed this year, a little bit about, obviously, the coaching staff, a little bit about the back page, but also about where I see us going, and a little bit about the list that we have at the moment, because I think it's a really tough decision. We mentioned on the podcast that unfortunately we're in a bit of a split mind where we don't know whether we want to win games and try and attract free agents like the Butters, like the Decodings, like the Leakerleys, all of those. But we also don't know whether we should fully bottom out the list and just go for top 3 draft picks, top 4 draft picks. It's unfortunate back end of last year we weren't able to do it. I'll just go straight into that, where 2 games last year, the Gold Coast game where we got a free kick that probably wasn't a free kick to Max King that we ended up winning, and then the Carlton game right at the end with the Jack Higgins winner. Sorry, Carlton fans. You take away both those games, right? We finish with the 5th and 6th pick in the draft. Now, we probably use one to bid on Leo Lombard, which is what we did originally, but we also get access to both Langford and Smiley, 2 absolute jets of midfielders. And the disappointing thing is, I think everyone in the Saints fan space, and even people inside the Saints, know how much we need a midfielder. There's a reason we went out and got Jack McRae. There's a reason that we needed to replace Brad Crouch. And it's because we just didn't have that talent. Jack Steele hasn't been that player for a couple of years. And Jack Sinclair's not good enough to play in the midfield full time. Naz would be great to be in there, but just doesn't have the body type to be a full-time midfielder. Mitch Owens, we've developed more into a forward. Marcus Windhager has not developed into the player I once thought he could be. Paddy Dow hasn't been there. Hunter Clark, his body's just let him down. And yet, as always, the last 5 years, we just haven't been bad enough and we haven't been good enough. And it's so frustrating to sit back and watch the same thing over and over and over again. 2021, we started off horribly after a really good year. We had some injuries here and there, and we just could never get going. But then in the back half of the year, we finished really strongly. And so we finished with, I believe, pick 10 or pick 11 or something like that. And we end up picking Wanganeen Millera. Fantastic draft picks. We go Owens and Wintega as well as our final two, who are both academy players. Thankfully, we were able to access them due to not going from 20 to 40, which is great. I love that. But then in 2022, we obviously start really well. Start 8-3. We're in the top 4 halfway through the year. Rumours about Brett Rudd signing whatsoever. Lose 3 games in a row. Sign Brett Rudd for a 2-year contract. Some of the young kids start playing in the back end of the year, but we absolutely shit ourselves after beating Carlton. We finish the year and we end up getting, I think, pick 8 or 9 or something like that. I can't remember. Maybe even pick 11. I can't remember now. But once again, we're not good enough to be able to make the top 8, and we're not bad enough to be able to get a top 4 pick. We end up taking Philippou. I love Mateus Philippou. I think he's going to be arguably our future captain. But we still could have had a top 3 pick. We could have had Horn Francis. We could have had Shees. We could have had any of those players. Still love you, Philippou. But once again, we're just not there. Fire Brett Rudd at the end of the season as well, just after the trade period, after we failed to get Jordan DeGoey. And just quickly, failed to get DeGoey. 2 weeks later, fire Ratton. And 2 weeks later, we hire Ross Lyon, old coach. I wasn't a fan back when all the stuff happened in terms of his initial leaving, where he went to Fremantle. I had no issues with signing him as our new coach. 2023, great year. Horrible fucking injury list, like completely screwed us over, and yet we still made finals, which shows how good of a coach Ross is, right? Lots of potential in that team. Philippou was the only rookie to play the entire year. Wintega and Owens were looking really promising. You had some really good younger players surrounding them as well. And we knew that year wasn't going to be anything. It was just a flash in the pan of what could be. The hope that Saints fans needed. End of 2023, we don't really do a lot of list changes. There are a couple forced ones where someone like Jade Gresham needed to leave, Paddy Ryder, a couple, like some of those players just were delisted, James Van Ayers, Tom Heimer, all those, right? 2024 comes around, horror injury list once again, and we start off really poor. And then we finish off really strongly once again. I think we finished once again 8-3 in the back end of the year. And it's just really difficult to watch the same thing, as I mentioned. It's so difficult to watch as a fan where your team just continuously lets you down like this. It's so frustrating. And for me, this season was never going to be us making top 8. I'll be honest, I never had us being top 8. But the fact that we've had 5 okay performances and 5 really, really bad performances, right? Our losses have not been good. You look at round 1 versus Adelaide, we got wiped off the floor. You look at the round 5 game against GWS, down by 50 points at 3/4 time. And then you play the Bulldogs and the Lions and you get swept horribly. Beat the Dockers in a really good performance that showed that the potential is there and showed that the midfield can perform when it needs to. But then you go up against Carlton in Spud's game, huge round, right? At the G, our only home game at the G all year. This is what we want to do. As a club, we want to play more home games at the G. And we only get 67,000 or whatever it was there, which I thought was disappointing. And we weren't bad, but we were just not good enough once again. And then we rock up this week and we lose to the winless West Coast Eagles in a dire performance. Shambolic. Like, there were so many words to describe it, yet I felt speechless. And once again, it just shows that the club at the moment doesn't know which direction it's going in. And in a moment, I'll bring up some of the trade and draft decisions we've made over recent years, but I want to talk about a bit more deeper than just what have we done, because what we could have done, I think, is more important. So instead of just talking about our drafting over the last few years, I'm going to sort of intertwine it with our total list changes and the fact that we've gone from one of the oldest lists in the competition just a few years ago to now one of the youngest, and how I think that's then going to change, which I'll talk about a little bit of our future and where I see us heading a bit later. But we'll start off with 2019 because I feel like this is sort of when it changed, when we hired Brett Ratton, got rid of Richardson, Alan Richardson, and where sort of the youth was started to be on the focus. So look at the 2019 list, right? The oldest player on our list was Sam Rowe. Completely forgot he ever played for us. Should not have been on the list at that stage at all. He was 31 years old. Our average age that year was 24, which was 9th, so completely average. However, our experience was pretty low, which was 13th at 55.5 games. In terms of our rookies that we had that year, it was Max King and Jack Bytel, basically. Those were the only two rookies that we had. We had a couple second years as well in Clark and in Caulfield who were really promising. But aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot in that list that you'd say they're going to be bona fide superstars. You still had the likes of Steele, Marshall, and Sinclair who have now developed into those players. However, that wasn't seen as where they were going to be back then. Marshall, yes, but he had a lot of injury issues still. But this list was absolutely atrocious. So as I said, 24 average age and 55.5 games experience. We then traded in a fair few players. We traded in the likes of Dougal Howard, Bradley Hill, Paddy Ryder, Zach Jones, and Dan Butler. Most of those were towards their tail end, well, not tail end, but a back end of their prime, you'd say. So the likes of Hill, the likes of Ryder, they've already been at their best. They were brought in to be the leadership that you'd want with a young team, because it was still looking as being a younger team, a really promising team though. And you look at the oldest player on this list, it was Paddy Ryder. Then you got Geary, Nathan Brown was still on this list, Shane Savage. Then you get the likes to Jake Carlisle, Dan Hanbury, who were getting games. And then in terms of the rookies, we didn't really draft too many. We got Burns and Connolly in the 2020 draft. So not great. Sorry, 2019 draft, whatever. Not great, to be honest. But the likes of Max King started. We made finals this year. Our average age was 24.4, which was 7th. So we had gotten a bit older. And our experience was 10th with an average of 62.2 games. This was a step in the right direction, I'd say. Made finals, beat the Bulldogs, as I mentioned. And this was when I really started to feel the belief. I'd never seen a final. I've never watched a final that St Kilda had won up until this point. So I was over the moon at this stage. But then you look at the 2021 year. We were second in the competition for average age of 25.2. And for a team that had only just won its first final in 10 years, basically, that's not what I want to see. It's a pretty bad look. We were third for total experience and average experience of games of 74.7. That's not a good look. Ryder as well was still there. We picked up Frawley, picked up Sean McKernan, likes of Paul Hunter. Seb Ross was still on the list. So Dylan Robertson was towards the back end of his list. But a lot of players who were 28 and above. And for a team that wasn't really looking to be very good that year, we also had the likes of Brad Crouch who joined from Adelaide that year. It didn't push us back because we still got the likes of Higgins in. We got a couple other younger players. However, we just delayed any chance of going to the draft. So 2020, we didn't have a single draft pick because we traded in to get Crouch. We traded in to get Jack Higgins. We wanted to get those players. We wanted to win now. And that completely ruined us in that 2020 draft, right? We should have 100% have stayed young. Look at that 2020 team. That was not going to win a grand final. And the only reason you go out and get those types of players and really go in without hitting the draft as well as getting in talent is if you think you're going to win the premiership next year, or at least contend. We were so far off that. And I think that really hurt us. But then going to the 2022 2022 season, we were 5th for age, so we got slightly younger. However, we were still at 25 average, and we went to just about 70 games experience on average, and that was 7th. So a little bit better, But you look at the age, Paddy Ryder, only getting older, 34. Jaron Geary, 33. Dan Hanbury, 31. We picked up Tom Campbell that year, who was 30. Tim Membry was only getting older. Dean Kent was somehow still on this list. And then we did thankfully pick up a few rookies, which I was really excited about. This is sort of when we started to really hit the draft and where that sort of promise that we see now started. And that was the draft that we got Mitch Owens, Naz, and Wintager. And I think that sort of set us up now, hopefully, even though I'm not the highest on a couple of those players. But we're still not young, right? We're still 5th for age. We're still 7th for experience. And as a team that just hit the draft, there's not enough players in their prime yet. This is when Steele, Sinclair, Marshall were at their just hitting their best altogether. I think Steele did get injured in this year. But it just wasn't good, right? The draft picks started to get games, which was awesome. And that's what you want to see. However, the list did not show a lot of promise, which is why when we didn't go for... Which is why when we went for Jordan De Goey, we were unsuccessful in our bid to get him, Brett Ratten was sacked. And Ross Lyon came in, and the whole mantra about the club changed. It was, we're going to target the draft. We're going to have to rebuild this list completely. And it was needed. It was really badly needed, because you compare Collingwood's list to what it was, to what it is now, the oldest list in the league, at 26.4. We were a year off that, as a team that was nowhere near premiership contention. Nowhere near it. And I think that's unacceptable. But you look at the playing list for 2023, once again, you hit the draft, get a few younger players in, the likes of Anthony Caminiti from the rookie list, Liam Stocker from the rookie list. That was needed, but we drafted Ollie Houghton, didn't turn out. Drafted Philippou, Angus McLennan, Isaac Keeler, all really high potential players. And the oldest player on our list at that stage was Tom Campbell, who was 31. We didn't have a single other player who was over 30. And that's the direction I think we really needed to go in. And I'm really happy we did, because I think had we not done that, we would have been in an even worse position now. And for this year, we were 11th for average age, so getting lower, looking at that younger list, 24.3 average age. And then we had 62.6 games of experience, which ranked 11th. Heading in the right direction. And then we had the 2024, last year. Look at the average age of our team. It was 24.5. So continuously getting young. Didn't get younger, but that's because we didn't really make too many list changes. We brought back a lot of players on 1-year deals. But our experience stayed at 67.9. Some of the younger players started to get a lot of playing time, which is really promising. But again, we had, 6 players over the age of 30. Tom Campbell, once again, being the oldest player on the list. And then you had the likes of Seb Ross, Brad Crouch, Tim Membry. They all ended up leaving at the end of this year. We were ranked 10th in age and 10th in experience, so both outside the top 10. But when you look at average goals, we were 16th, bottom 4. Coaches' votes, 15th, bottom 4, and Brownlow votes. We were 8th as an average across our team, which ranked 15th. That just shows that this list has some higher age players, but they weren't very good, and then some lower ranked, really promising youth players. And I think this was the year that we said, yeah, we're hitting the draft. We got the likes of Angus Hastie, Darcy Wilson, Hugo Garcia, Lance Collard, and Ari Schoenmaker. A lot of these players were later in the draft, but it showed that our list is heading in the right direction. And then this year, obviously, our average age is 24, which is 14th. That's a huge difference. Our average experience, also 14th at 66.6. Our oldest player on our list at this stage was Jimmy Webster and Brad Hill, as well as Mason Wood, who are all 31, but they're all still getting playing time. They're all, at the moment, still in our best 23. Then you got the likes of Jack McRae, 30 years old, Jack Sinclair, 30 years old. And Zach Jones as well. Those are the only players above 30. But then you look at the rookies. So James Barrett, Alex Taru, Toby Trevelyan, Eamon Armstrong from Ireland, Hugh Boxall, Alex Dodson, Patrick Said as well is another one. They're all under the age of 18, right? You look at the amount of players under 21 or under 22. It's over 20. So within 3 to 4 years, we have gone from the second oldest list to having 20 players under the age of 22. And they're all really promising as well. It's not like they're absolute duds. A lot of these players have played. A lot of these players have stayed in the team for a long time as well. You look at like Darcy Wilson, Naz, Mitch, Windy. They've all played almost 50 games for a lot of them. Like Darcy Wilson didn't miss a game. Teus Philippou didn't miss a game in their first year. So we're blooding youth. And I think that's really promising. And that sort of leads me into where I think our list should go for this year. What do I see this year bringing out for the Saints? So this basically all culminates into a little bit about where I see St Kilda at the moment. This is going to be one of the biggest off seasons, I think, arguably ever. Definitely in my time being a proper St Kilda diehard fan. I started 2019, so not that much to compare to be honest. But I think when you're looking at the free agents we're talking to, so the Konings, the Bergmans, the Aliers, and also the re-signing of Naz going to be so critical to the future of this club. It's putting the doubt, I think, in both the players and the front office's mind. Do we need to be good enough to the point where these players are going to have the attraction of we're going to a club that is going to be promising compared to they just want to come for the money? Because you look at the likes of De Koning, it's 700k. That's the number one reason he will come to St Kilda, the money. But the problem is, being somewhat successful, you're not getting access to the talent that will drive this club forward. So you're not getting access, like I mentioned, to the talent of last year's midfield crop, of the Smileys, of the Langfords, of the Sid Drapers, right? But then, if you need to be good enough to get those players in this year, that will help improve the talent and the high-end talent, most importantly, then you're not going to be bad enough to the point where you're getting, again, the access to those players. Recently spoke to Dylan Alexander, fantastic draft expert who knows his stuff really well. He was on Zero Access Footy just last week, right? He mentioned a lot of midfielders, aside from the big ruckman, Cooper Duff Tyler. And I think, once again, it's what St Kilda need, right? We know we need this midfielder. It's why we're targeting Butters. It's why we're targeting Bergman, because we know he can play midfield. It's why we need to get something like this, which is why I'm of the opinion that the second half of the season should not be anything at all about how good we are. It should all be about playing the kids, getting talent, and it should all be about playing the kids. It should be about blooding the youth, right? I want to see Max Heath get a game. I want to see Ari Sean make a break into the team and hold his spot. I want to see Isaac Keeler and see what he can potentially do, whether forward or back. I want to see if James Barrett can have a future in this league. I want to see if Max Heath, as I mentioned, I want to see potentially Alex Dodson if something happens to Rowan Marshall. I want to see more of Angus Hasty. I want to see these younger players drive this club, because we've rebuilt it. We have drafted 20 players over the last 4 years. I want to see them play together. We're still relying on the Jack McRae's. We're still relying on the Dougal Howards. We're still relying on the Brad Hills. I don't want that to be the case anymore. I think it's awesome the players we're targeting are 25 and under. Your De Konings, your Butters, your Leakaliers, your all those players, right? They're all 25 and under, and that's awesome. But it doesn't matter if we get all these players. We spend so much money to bring all these people in, but there's nothing around them that's good enough. And so it's going to be really difficult, because you're not going to have that attraction to those players. You're not going to have fans coming in. They're always going to be disappointed. They're never going to rock up to games. Well, we don't rock up to games anyway, but you're still not going to get that 35k that we've had a few times at Marvel this year. But I just want to see this team carried by the youth. I'm sick of Brad Hill playing the way he is. I'm sick of Jack Steele playing the way he is. I'm sick of Jack Steele being captain of this football club anymore. I want it to be Callum Wilkie. But that's a completely different topic. I want this to be the new face of the St Kilda Football Club. I want Mitch Owens to play full-time mid. I want to see this youthful team really pave the way for this football club, because in 3 years' time, it's not going to be Brad Hill. It's not going to be Jack Steele. It's not going to be Jack Sinclair. It's probably not going to be Rowan Marshall. It's going to be these younger players. And if we don't start seeing it now, it's definitely not going to be happening then. So the real sort of thing in the end that this all leads to is where do I think we should go for this year? I mentioned that I want the youth, but in terms of success, I genuinely don't really care how good we are. I would much rather finish in the bottom four, be able to go for a Sam Grills type, be able to get one of those top draft picks, and I just want to see some excitement in the way we play. A lot of times as St Kilda, we've had a couple good years, we've had a couple down years with coaches, and then we don't know where we want to go. And that's when we fire the coach. I don't want that to be the case this time with Ross Lyon, because I genuinely think that he is top tier in terms of coaches, and especially for where we should get. In terms of St Kilda, someone like Ross is exactly what we need. The issue is, I don't see us properly bottoming out this year. I think we're still only going for the one mid-season draft pick, which will have to be a key position player. Like, there's no other option. We literally don't have any backups at the moment that aren't second or first year players. I'm struggling to think of a way to even finish this video, to be honest. This is what happens when it's your first of the year. You don't know what to do. There's no other choice, really, if we want to be, in 3 years' time, a premiership contender. We've just got to stick fat with the tough games that might end up being in the back half of the year. But, as always, I do appreciate all of you watching. As I mentioned before, please check out the Saints Nation and Zero Access Footy YouTube channels. It's where I'm doing a lot of my content at the moment. I'm talking a lot during the week. But I do want to get this channel back up and going. I'm currently working on a video about the AFL as a whole and a little bit about the leadership issues there at the moment. And that's going to be something that I'm going to try and get out hopefully about round 15 maybe. I'm going to be in uni holidays by then, so I'll have a lot of time to be able to work on it. So that's what I'm hoping to really get going with this channel again. But as always, appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end. Probably not going to be many of you, but peace.